we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the August 15th, 2023 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning. Present here today are Allison Grass, John Bennett, Bill Goodwin Jr., Chapter K, and me, or Chair Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Allison Craig, and zoning staff as well. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak identify yourself for the record, please. We'll conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the matter as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, and followed by and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property will effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by the city ordinance to swear you in if you intend to speak tonight, so if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You'll signify by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right. Housekeeping matter deferrals. We do have a couple of deferrals this evening from the agenda. The deferrals on the agenda are items A2, B10, B11. A2 relating to 60 Spring Street, B10 for 2318 Sunnyside Avenue, and B11 for 68.5 Lee Street and 190 Nassau Street. Those are all deferred, so if you're here for one of those items, you may be excused tonight. The first item on our agenda is A1, review of minutes and deferred applications for previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review minutes of the August 1st, 2023 board meeting. Those minutes are in the packet for the board. Is there any motion? All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is B1, 19 Haygood Avenue, West Side, TMS number 460-00-00-017. requesting the fourth one-year extension of a vested right that expires on July 17, 2023, pursuant to Section 54-962. Vested right pertains to a special exception granted under Section 54-220 on July 17, 2018, with conditions for a 250-unit accommodations use in an MU2 WH mixed-use 2 workforce housing zone district. The owner is South Park Ventures, LLC. The applicant is Womble Bond Dickinson, U.S. LLP, James Wilson. Mr. Batchelder.
This is it says an extension of the vested right. It satisfies the requirement of extension. We recommend the board approve it.
All right. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion? Mr. Wilson, would you like to address the board? Please, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. It's James Wilson with Womble Bond Dickinson, the applicant. The only thing I wanted to just add to what Mr. Batchelder said is that our legislature just recently, beginning of summer, passed a joint resolution extending development approvals. And this is a relatively late-breaking thing in just the summer. So we have communicated with the city attorney. Our understanding is that this joint resolution, like the previous ones back in following great session, will extend these existing approvals. Arguably, this is not necessary, but we'd like to just go ahead and do this approval extension this evening. And then just like all the other approvals that have been extended over the past several years, we will come back for future extensions and elaborate on what extension we're on at that point. Does that make sense? Feel free to ask me a question.
Preview of coming attractions?
Exactly. And so all of the, with apologies to you for all of the extensions that you all have been approving for the past several years, there's a good chance a bunch of those will come back. Obviously, this most recent extension was as a result of COVID. That's why our legislature. So with that, just want to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the city? Anybody ready to vote? Ready for the extension. All right. Mr. McKay moves to approve. I have a second. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes 4-0. The application for the extension, the fourth one-year extension of the vested right for 19 Haggard Haggard Avenue is approved. All right. The next item on our agenda is B2, 82 Mary Street, Mazza Grasboro, TMS number 460-12-02-096, requesting the first one-year extension of a vested right that expires on October 19, 2023, pursuant to Section 52-962. Vested right pertains to a special exception granted under Section 54-220 on October 19, 2021, for a 50-unit accommodations use in an MU-WH mixed-use 2 workforce housing zone district. The owner is Bennett Coleman, LLC. The applicant is Womble Bond Dickinson, U.S. James Wilson. Mr. Batchelder.
Like the previous request, we recommend approval of this request.
All right, Mr. Wilson, anything to say on this one?
Did that.
Perfect. Any discussion, any questions? Ready to vote? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Mr. Goodwin seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The first one-year extension of the vested right for 82 Mary Street is approved. Next item on our agenda is B3 for 1 Kyle Place, Wagner Terrace, TMS number 463-11-04-094, zoned SR2, requesting a special exception under Section 54-110 to allow construction of a single-family residence that extends a non-conforming 1-foot 11-inch stairs, north side setback, 9 feet are required, requesting a variance from Section 54-301 to allow construction of a single-family residence with a 4-foot 11-inch south side setback, 9 feet are required. The owner is Brian Mahon. The applicant is Joel Adrian, Studio 291 LLC. Mr. Batchelder.
Kyle Place is a short residential street that runs south from 7th Street, Wagner Terrace. It does not extend all the way through the block, as you can see, but it has homes on both sides. And from the map, you see that this is the first lot that fronts on Kyle Place, just south of 7th Street. And you also notice on this map, there's a building there that was a residence, a single-family home. And this aerial view shows that home, and it shows the other homes on Kyle Place, as well as the homes to the north on 7th. And this is an image early last year of that home. It's been in poor condition for many years. And so the plan is to demolish this house and build back a new single-family home. And we'll have a larger footprint. So the current footprint is 24 feet long, maybe a little bit longer if you include the steps and the porch, front porch. And the proposed house, which is kind of hard to see, but it's 57 feet long. And so it extends ways back on the lot, and they're requesting a special exception to extend the non-conforming 1 foot 11-inch north side setback that exists with that existing house, extend it further back on the lot. And then they need a variance to allow this house with a 4 foot 11-inch south side setback. So that would be from the lot to the south. And this is a blow up of that site plan. So here is the tightest point of the footprint. And then on the south side, there's parking for 2 cars. But then the house bumps out a little bit, gets a little bit wider, and extends back to the rear wall of the house. So it's that section, that rear section of the house that is 4 foot 11 inches away from the neighboring property. And floor plans showing the proposal. And these are elevations. So proposed front elevation is shown bottom left, and then the neighbors to the north on 7th Street would have this view, this elevation to look at. And then the neighboring properties to the south would have this elevation to look at. So that is the request for you, and it's allowed to be 2 stories. They are elevating this house just to meet the flood zone requirements, so keeping it low. Or actually, it's allowed to be 2.5 stories. So they're elevating it to meet the flood zone requirements, but not extending above that. And it is a 2.5 story house the way it's designed. And our recommendation is for approval. We're not aware of any objections or concerns to this request. As you can see from the aerial image, and this image as well, that the homes are tightly spaced on that street. So that's not an uncommon feature, but that's our recommendation.
Thank you, Lee. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 1 Kyle Place? If you're here in opposition, just raise your hand. All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here present?
Yes.
Mr. Adrian. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, y'all. Thank you, Joel Adrian. Studio 291, here on behalf of Brian, the owner of One Cow Place. I think he did a very nice job of introducing the project to you. I'll just mention that if you go to the existing site plan, view that. If you look at the way that existing house is oriented, it is pretty much on that left side of the property line. And so our extension of the non-conforming left side setback for that special exception actually improves it by over double, because we are almost 2 feet consistently on our request for that special exception, extending that non-conforming setback. On the right-hand side, it is just that back portion that is going over the required 9-foot setback. It's important to note that when you put the required city setbacks on the property, you end up with about 10 feet of width that you can design a house for that would run roughly 35, 40, maybe 50 feet in depth. So it doesn't really, the setbacks applied to this property would not allow for construction. And if you go into that overall, it was like the first slide where it shows all the properties back on one more. There you go. You look at this one and you look at the positions of those homes and the widths of them on the property. There really isn't a house down Kyle Place that was not granted some either variance or special exception for it to fit on the property because those lots are narrow. Put a 9-foot side yard setback on it, there's nothing left for the width of the house. But I'll gladly answer questions that you all might have about our application.
Thank you, Mr. Adrian. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant or for the city?
I was just wondering if you could clarify what the hardship is. I heard you just talk about the precedent of other properties.
It's not so much the precedent. I think it goes back to that site plan sheet. You see the setbacks actually applied to that property. And it leads you this width right here to design to, if you didn't get a side yard setback variance or special exception. Even the bigger house that was there initially would fit within that footprint. So the hardship is that when you strictly apply the city zoning ordinance, even other than downtown, in my house is wide for Charleston, same thing. That variance.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Mr. McKay moves to approve. Any further discussion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bennett seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously. And the special exception of the variance for 1 Kyle Place are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, B4, 489 Hugie Street, Hampton Park Terrace, TMS number 460-02-04-079, zoned DR1F, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a 2-story addition, dining room, bathroom that extends a non-conforming 6.12-foot west side setback, 9 feet of required. The owner is Glenn Jennings. The applicant is AJ Architects. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a home on Hugie Street, Hampton Park Terrace. You can see it's a corner lot right here, zoning map, and another view of the property, and application description. So the proposed addition is a rear addition, and it's actually this part of the elevation from the side street right here, but you'll see that in another drawing. So existing conditions, this is the back of the house right here, and the addition would be over this area right here. So existing, let's see, the existing is on the right on this image, And so existing house, you can see it's a rectangular shape across the back with a deck, I guess, off the back, at the back door. And approaches 2.8 feet into the west side setback right now. And with the addition they're proposing as shown on the left, it just simply extends that encroachment, that 2.8 foot encroachment further back and creates this little addition on the back. And plan view looks like this. So this is the existing footprint and the proposed. So I've highlighted the boundary of the addition that requires a special exception on the ground floor. It's this part right here, because there's already a one-story section of the house right here. And then above, on the second story, it's this footprint right here that requires a special exception. And again, an elevation, proposed elevation is on the bottom. And this is the view. So this would be the view from the neighbor to that west side. And the addition would be this section right here. And then this is the view from the side street right here. And view from the backyard of the house. So that's the request. Again, it says special exception, and light near impacts are the issue. And I'm not aware of any objections or concerns from any neighbors or have received any comments to that effect. So our recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 489 QG Street? All right, seeing no one in opposition, we have the owner or applicant here.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Jennings. I'm representing the owner of the property, but actually I live here too. Online. The request tonight, I think I'll address the hardship. This is a corner lot, and if you look back at the site plan, you can see that the city is on QG Street has set up a rhythm where all the houses are oriented toward the east side of the property and the driveways are on the west side of the property, but in this case, it's a corner lot, and so the house was shoved to the opposite side. And so it's already residing within the side yard setback, and to add on to the building would require this special exception. So that's the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the city? Do I hear a motion?
For approval.
Ms. Grass moves to approve. Second. Mr. Goodwin seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception for 489 QG Street is unanimously granted. Thank you, Ms. Jennings. All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is B5, 35 Riverdale Drive, Avondale, TMS number 418-14-00-063, zoned SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a carport addition with a 3-foot east side setback. 9 feet are required. The owner applicant is Allison Ryan. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is an addition to the side of the existing house, as is shown here on the zoning map, to accommodate this carport. And this is an image of the existing home on the right, and I'd like to make some improvements to that home and add this carport to the left side of the house where that car is parked. And so that is an image of the carport addition. And these are the plans. So I've got existing proposed is on the right, but existing on the left. This is a blow up of that proposed. So the carport is 22 feet long from front to back and 17 feet wide. It will have a 3-foot setback off of the side property line to the overhang, that carport. And in plan view, it appears this way. But elevations show the proposal right here. So tastefully done, I think, and I think it fits in with the neighborhood nicely. And again, we're not aware of any objections or concerns to this proposal, and our recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here in the audience tonight who intends to speak in opposition to the application for 35 Riverdale Drive? All right, seeing none, do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes. Ms. Ryan, I presume.
Yes, Allison Ryan. So this is an addition to have a place to park and protect a car and, as you mentioned, keeping in character with the neighborhood, and really no detriment to the neighbor.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Any questions for Lee?
Have we heard from the neighbor? Did you receive a letter of support or email from the neighbor? We spoke.
No, not specifically. I mentioned it to her in passing.
Is that Ms. Seeger? Is that the neighbor that you're talking about, Ms.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, to the north. Or the,
Bennett? Does she live at the residence?
She does, yes.
And has a notice been posted at your property?
Yes.
And is it someplace where it would be visible to your neighbor?
Yep, right in the front. Smack dab in the center.
And you did mention it to her?
Yes.
All right, any further questions for the applicant or the city?
motion move for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Do I have a second? Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance is granted for 35 Riverdale Drive. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is B6, 7 Magazine Street, Charleston Village, TMS number 457-08-04-081, zone DR2F, requesting a special exception under section 54-225 to allow a school use on this property. The owner is 7 Magazine Street LLC, Charleston Day School. The applicant is Womble Bond Dickinson, U.S. LLP, James Wilson. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is a zoning map that shows the location of the property sort of in the middle of the block of Magazine between Logan and Archdale Street. And of course, the property backs up to the Charleston Day School campus, and that is who's making this request. And for a school use in a residential zoned area, the property must be zoned into a school overlay zone. And City Council has done that. They have rezoned this property to include that 7 Magazine into that school overlay zone, like the Charleston Day School campus as well. And they did that with the intention of the school coming before the board to seek the approval for the actual use of the property for that use. And so that's what brings them here tonight. The property, this is a nice view, gives you a real good, you application of the relationship to the Charleston Day School campus. And Mr. Wilson, representing the school, can speak to the specifics, but the special exception requirements list a series of conditions that the application has to meet, that the board has to find that they meet. And this is that explanation that was attached to the application. It satisfies all the requirements, in my opinion. So I believe they meet all the requirements. There won't be classrooms in this. Well, there won't be more staff, more students because of this. And so there's no more parking that is required for the school based on the addition of this little property to their campus. And it's not going to be used for outdoor playground, so that's not an issue. And so I think they meet all the requirements, and our recommendation is for approval of the request.
All right, thank you, Lee. Do we have anyone here tonight to speak in opposition to the application for 7 Magazine Street? All right, seeing no one in opposition, Mr. Wilson, would you like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the board. I'll be very brief and I'll belabor it. Mr. Young from Charleston Day School has been in residential areas of downtown Charleston for his entire lifespan.
86 years.
Thank you, 6 years. Okay, here with the head of school, the student art side is going to care for the Ross Center here. I was on Elliott Street, on State Street, where I attended, on Archdale Street. This is part of the plan for Charleston Day to remain downtown. As you all know, there are many schools that are open downtown as part of our residential communities. Schools like First Baptist, Simmons Bay Middle School, others. With 7 Magazine Street, just the main point I wanted to hit is to clarify, make sure we're aware is part of the rezoning to add this to the school overlay. We also worked with the Fielding family to rezone their property to allow for it to be used for school use, and our hope is to complete the acquisition of that property. And this 7 Magazine Street property, Mr. would you mind just going back to like that overhead view of it? Perfect. Could be a basically pedestrian connection to the Fielding property, which is just here. So a walkway could exist that would allow students, faculty to connect through here in the future. So just wanted to elaborate on that as part of the proposed potential use in the future. As Mr. Batchelor said, I believe we meet the conditions. We're not adding a playground or employees or noise or traffic, so we don't believe we have any material impact with this expansion. City Council looked at all of this, including the Fielding property, of course, and unanimously approved rezoning of both properties. They looked at traffic, they looked at outreach retail. In terms of neighborhood support, the school has met with most neighbors, contacted with most neighbors, and Charleston Village Neighbor Association sent letters of support for rezoning, as well as the housing authority, which is across Logan Street. I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the city? Mr. Goodwin.
Be to recuse.
Okay.
I didn't realize that was a connection between field and property.
Okay, I understand. Mr. Goodwin will recuse himself, and we'll get the right forms together and in place after the, I think if you'll go ahead and part of the discussion and then come back once we're done. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Move for approval. All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Any discussion, or do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously, and the application for the special exception for 7 Magazine Street is approved. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And Mr. Goodwin, we hope you'll return. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on our agenda is B7, 9 BZA-Z, Charlestown, TMS number 458-09-03-088, zoned SR5, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a 1-story bathroom addition that extends a non-conforming 11-inch south side setback 9 feet are required. The owner is Scott Jenkins. The applicant is John Haley. Mr. Batchelder.
It's a very small addition to an existing residence in Beach Valley. You can see it here on the zoning map. And this aerial view, the addition is on the back of the house. And it's kind of on the left side, closest to the home that's on the left. This view. So these are photographs of the existing back of the house, and the addition would go right back here. And you're looking at the door. And this site plan shows the existing house, and the addition is this proposed powder room right here, 1-story addition to the back of this house, very small, but it does require the board's approval for the special exception. And so minimal. Take a second thought about that. But we took it, and so here it is, and that's it. And this is a letter from the neighbor on the south. No objections to this. Our recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Do we have anyone here who intends to speak in opposition to the application for 9 BZA-Z? All right, see, no one in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? Is there anything you'd like to say to the board?
We don't have any concerns. You might be talking more about it.
I don't think that will be necessary, but let's find out. Do we have anybody who has any questions for the applicant or questions for the city, or are we ready to make a motion? Ms. Grass moves to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No one is opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception for 9 BZA-Z is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is B8, 15 Broad Street, TMS number 458-09-03-132, zoned LB, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow 2 dwelling units with 740 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit. 3,000 square feet are required. The owner is D.E. Broad Street. The applicant is Will Danielson. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is a building on Broad in a limited business zoned area. Shown here on the zoning map, it's a relatively small property for Broad Street properties. But it has a beautiful building on it that occupies the entire lot, 4 stories tall. And back in 2011, a request to have 3 residential units in this building was approved by the board with a condition that the ground floor would not be used for a residential use. And but that vested right lapsed. So we've got a new application to place 2 residential units on the upper floors. These plans show those units, and our recommendation is going to be for approval with that same condition that the ground floor is not used for any residential use, and which they have no intentions of doing. But But anyway, that's, I had the approval from, on the left side is the approval from 2011. So, and the extensions were granted, but then it lapsed, so that's what brings it back to the board. And like I said, our recommendation is for approval with that condition.
All right, thank you, Lee. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 15 Broad Street? I see no one in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? Anything you'd like to say to the board?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be brief. As the owner and during that time of COVID, I had unfortunately allowed that previous zoning variance to expire. All your requests. Try to get that building back.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Does anybody have any questions for the owner, applicant, or for the city? I have one question. Does the application differ at all from what was originally applied for, or is this basically the same application that was granted?
Well, the only difference is really the 2 units versus 3.
Okay, so they had 3 in their application previously, and now they have 2. Any other questions? All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Mr. Goodwin seconds the motion. All in favor, please. Oh, you got a condition. The condition, Mr. McKay, is? Sure. No residential on the first floor, right?
Oh, yes, please. Yes, thank you.
So let's restate that motion for the record, please. That's a motion to approve
With the condition of no residential on the ground level.
Yes. And thank you, Mr. Gass, for helping us find our way here. So the motion is to approve with the condition of no residential on the first floor. Mr. Goodwin has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No one opposed. The motion is granted. The motion passes and the variance is granted with the condition that no residential use on the first floor. Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is B965 South Street on the east side, PMS number 459-09-03-068, Zone DR2F, requesting a special exception under Section 54-110 to allow a 2-story addition, porches, stair, that extends a non-conforming 0-foot east side setback and a non-conforming 6.28 west side setback. 3 feet and 7 feet are required. The owner is Joseph and Christine Fidel. The applicant is Becky Fenno Architecture. Mr. Batchel.
So this is a existing residential structure on the south side of South Street that is in very poor condition. It's currently, it has been 2 residential units, and the proposal is to convert it back to a single family residence and elevate the house to meet the flood zone requirements, and then build this addition on the back. And of course, doing that, they'll fix up this house. And I'll just show you an image of the existing. So you can see it in the middle, right up here. And up close views. So it's in pretty rough shape. And it's got the red X, the fire department on there. And so rough shape, and they are going to add a relatively small addition in the back. The existing is on the left side, proposed on the right, and so this cross-hatched area is the proposed addition. On the back, some of it's enclosed, some of it's a porch. That's a porch right here, and stairs. and close view. And so that's an close view. That's the second floor would have this additional living space. And images shown here. So on the bottom is the proposed elevation. This would be the east side elevation. The addition is back here. And then you see how the house is being elevated as well. So a lot of money in this historic home. But bottom again, this is the addition shown here, and the rear elevation shown here. So improvements to this house are proposed, and the owner of, I guess, 38 Mary Street, that'd be the home to the south, I think that's correct, which is indicating their total support. And we're happy to support this. Bring this home back to something that contributes to the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Lee. Do we have any opposition to the application for 65 South Street? I see no one in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant present? Yes.
I just want to say that the owner is looking forward to tackling this project and restoring this house and really making it a family house for them. And they have a number of children, and they're really asking for this addition just to add a little bit of dining space at the back and that porch and a master suite above. And we've tried to speak with all the owners and give them drawings, and really the only one to actively respond was that 38 Mary.
Thank you. Just for the record, you're Becky Finno.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Thank
Becky.
No problem. Thank you. All right, anybody have any questions for Ms. Finno or for Lee? Questions? Do I hear a motion? Goodman moves to approve. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception for 65 South Street is granted. All right, we're deferring B10. We're deferring B11. That brings us to B12 for 813 DuPont Road and 804 Orleans Road, TMS number 351-13-00-047 and -067, zone GB, requesting a special exception under section 54-220 to allow a 137 unit accommodations use in a GBA, General Business Accommodations Zone District. The owner is Palace Holdings, LLC. The applicant is Kellum Engineering, Thomas Kellum. Mr. Batchel.
So this is a site in West Ashley where City Council recently rezoned the property. So both properties now, there are two properties shown in this image. One that is DR2, residential zoning. And then the other one is general business. City Council recently rezoned the DR2 property to general business and rezoned both of the properties into the accommodations overlay zone so that a hotel could be built on the site if the board grants a special exception for the hotel use. And so that's what we're doing tonight, is hearing or reviewing that proposal for an actual accommodations use on this site. And one thing I'll point out, you've got an existing hotel directly across the street, not in the city, but it's a hotel that was recently built there. And of course, this is right along DuPont and Orleans Road, between Sam Rentberg and Savannah Highway. So when there are other hotels in that area, this is information submitted by the applicant. So again, this is an image of the existing property right here. Looking to the north, you see that hotel, existing hotel right here. And more views of the site. This is across Dulcie Road, the property, the street on the south side of this property. That's the view across that street. And you've got the Wells Fargo drive-through lane and access lane off DuPont Road to the north. You've got another residential property across DuPont Road and other adjacent properties across DuPont Road. And this is the hotel to the west across Williams Road. And other commercial properties. So the applicant has submitted their application with the responses to the special exception requirements for accommodations use. And we feel that they meet all the requirements. In this case, it's pretty easy. This is a site that has parking, plenty of parking on it. It's more parking than the city requires. It's got its pickup and drop off areas on site. And Dulcie and, well, DuPont and Orleans Road really are not residential streets. And so our folks at the Department of Traffic and Transportation reviewed their traffic analysis and clear that this won't create any issues for any residential streets in that area with traffic. And there's no existing residential units on the property that are being displaced by the proposal. And this is the actual proposal. They've got large grand trees on the site they've got to work around. This is early site plan. And they, of course, have stormwater drainage issues as well, all that sort of thing to address. But you can see that the site provides plenty of room for parking in the building. And some more images of that, elevations, perspective view of the proposal. And then this is the email from James Wallace in the Department of Traffic and Transportation, the city, indicating that he thinks that they meet the requirements as far as traffic issues go. And more information about that. But so we feel that they meet all the requirements for a special exception for this use and recommend approval.
Thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here in opposition to the application for 813 DuPont Road and 804 Orleans Road? I can see no one in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? Thank you, sir. If you could please identify your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Thomas Kellum, Kellum Engineering, the applicant. Mr. Blassis here is the owner, and Mike Rumsey, the architect. As Mr. Batchelor said, we do meet all the requirements for special exception. We'd be happy to answer any questions. We're not displacing any residential or office uses, not increasing traffic in any residential districts. There is an existing hotel across the street. We believe another one's going to be constructed next adjacent to that as well. So we're in character with the neighborhood and be happy to address any questions in regard.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kellum. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kellum or for the city?
I was just wondering, does this have to go before site design, BZA site design?
I'm not sure if
about
it
the
will.
trees?
It may not, depending on how they address those issues. They're early in the site planning process, so they've got a little ways to go.
Yes, we've walked the property with Eric Schultz twice, and we'll actively work with him to work around the trees that we may have to come before site design.
Well, they asked about the brand, hotel brand. Do you have a brand is?
True Hotel, the hotel brand.
True Hotel.
It's a Hilton product.
True. And the timeable for construction.
as soon as we can get it approved.
Okay. Within the next year.
It'll be a longer process than that. I
Okay.
imagine maybe 2 years before we can break ground and then how long construction may take at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, like it passes about 2 years.
Lee, remind us what the proximity to other hotels is. What is that? What is the indication for that? Is that positive or negative? What is the about that?
The special exception test speaks to location of the accommodations use will contribute to the maintenance or creation of a diverse mixed-use district. Of course, you've got the bank, you've got lots of retail in that area, you've got the hotel across the street, this hotel, and there are residential apartments around the property. It's sort of in a change, in a state of flux there, but, and some other business properties, I think.
Yeah, there's some contractors operating hotels as well. Quite a bit of flex space.
Yeah. So you got quite a bit of a mix right there right now, but I don't see this being not meeting that requirement. And certainly won't share any of its facilities with any other hotels, so those are the, we're talking about hotels in the peninsula. Those have been issues in the past, but I don't think that's the case here.
It's also, just to add a little bit, there's a small strip mall, optometrist, vet, used car dealership, any type of businesses.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Questions for the applicant, questions for the city? There are no other questions. Somebody ready to make a motion?
My questions are answered in the application, so I'll make a motion for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception approving the hotel is granted. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.